You know, it's gotta be one of the worst feelings for a boater. One second, you're out on the water, having a great day, and the next, you're watching your outboard motor disappear under the waves. It is a truly gut-wrenching moment. But listen, it doesn't have to be the end of the line for your engine. So let's get into our field guide for how you can bring that motor back from the deep. And right off the bat, let's start with a bit of hope. Marine journalist Doug Thompson really hits the nail on the head here. This is not some automatic death sentence for your motor. You can succeed. In fact, you probably will, but only if you're fast and you're smart about it. And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? When the panic starts to set in, it's so easy to make a wrong move, a move that could cause some really catastrophic damage. What you need is a plan, a clear, step-by-step guide to follow. And that is exactly what we're going to lay out for you. We'll kick things off by understanding how this nightmare even happens. Then we'll cover that all-important first hour. After that, we'll get hands-on with the revival process, and we'll wrap up with how to prevent this from ever happening again. All right, let's jump in. Okay, first up, let's talk about how we even get into this mess in the first place. Understanding the cause is really the very first step toward making sure it doesn't happen to you. And believe me, these things are way more common than you might think. This happens pretty often, especially with those smaller, portable outboards. The ones under 25 horsepower that are just secured with clamps instead of being bolted right to the transom. A little vibration can work those clamps loose, a big wake from another boat can knock it off balance, and just like that, your day on the water is totally ruined. All right, we are now entering the single most critical phase of this whole rescue operation. Seriously, what you do in this first hour will absolutely determine whether your engine lives or dies. I really cannot stress this enough. If your engine goes for a swim in salt water, you are in an all-out race against the clock. Corrosion doesn't wait around for you to get back to the dock. It starts attacking the metal, the wiring, the electronics, almost instantly. There's a saying among professional marine mechanics, and it is the absolute truth. Every single minute you save dramatically increases your odds of a full recovery. Waiting till tomorrow, that is simply not an option. So what do? 3 things right now. First, kill the power. Disconnect that battery. You do not want to deal with electrical shorts. Second, you've got to get that engine out of the water. I don't care if you use a winch, a rope, or just pure muscle, whatever it takes, get it out safely and get it out fast. And third, start flushing it with fresh water. The goal here is to get that corrosive salt off of everything as fast as you possibly can. Now pay close attention, because this is the single most important warning in this entire guide. Whatever you do, you have to fight every single instinct in your body that's telling you to turn that key or pull that cord. Trying to start the engine at this point is the absolute worst mistake you could possibly make. And here's why that is. Right now, those cylinders are probably full of water. It's a condition called hydrolock. And unlike an air-fuel mix, water doesn't compress. So if you try to force that piston up, all that pressure has nowhere to go. You will bend connecting rods, you will crack the cylinder walls, you might even shatter the entire engine block. You will literally turn a salvageable engine into a very, very expensive anchor. Okay, so you've got the engine out of the water, and you haven't tried to start it. Fantastic. You're on the right track. Now, the real work begins, the detailed process of bringing it back to life. We're going to start with what mechanics call pickling the engine. It's all about displacing the water and protecting those delicate internal parts. First, you're going to pull the spark plugs. This gives the water an escape route. Next, pour a little bit of engine oil directly into each cylinder. And finally, you're going to turn the flywheel over by hand several times. This will literally push the water out through the spark plug holes, and at the same time, it'll coat the cylinder walls with a nice protective layer of oil. Next up is a really thorough cleaning. Get that cowling off and use a garden hose to flush absolutely everything. That salt loves to hide in the tiny little jets in your carburetor, so really focus on that area. Once it's clean, you're going to spray a ton of marine fogging oil into those cylinders. Then it's time to tackle the electronics. Disconnect every connector you can, clean all the contacts, and when you put it back together, use dielectric grease to seal out any future moisture. Now, before you even think about firing it up, we have to talk about lubrication. And it's different depending on your engine. For a 4-stroke, that water has turned your oil into a milky mess. You have to drain it and change the filter immediately. And hey, you should probably plan on doing a second oil change after it runs for a little while. Now for a 2-stroke, the strategy is different. You'll want to run a slightly richer oil to fuel mix. This is going to give those traumatized internal parts some much-needed extra lubrication. All right, after all that hard work, this is the moment of truth. Put in some fresh spark plugs, hook up your fuel, and try to start it. Look, it's probably going to cough and sputter and complain as it burns off all that leftover gunk and moisture. That's okay. Just let it run at a fast idle. The engine's own heat is your best friend now. It's going to bake out any water that's hiding in those deep crevices. So you might be wondering, does this process actually work out in the real world? Oh yeah, it absolutely does. Let's take a look at a real case study of a 15-horsepower Yamaha that went for a swim 5 miles offshore during a really nasty squall. This thing was underwater for almost 10 full minutes. But as soon as they got it back to the dock, they followed this exact procedure perfectly. A long, thorough freshwater flush. They used an entire can of fogging oil to coat the internals, meticulous cleaning of all the electronics, and then fresh fluids and new plugs the very next day. And the result? Well, it pretty much speaks for itself. After some initial sputtering, the engine smoothed right out and ran like a champ. And it didn't just run for a day or two. The owner got another 6 years of solid, reliable service out of that motor. And it's all because they acted fast and they were thorough. So, you saved your engine. Fantastic. That is a huge win. Now, let's talk about how to make sure you never ever have to go through this again. And let's also cover when it might be time to swallow your pride and call in a professional. Just look at the difference here. On the one hand, you're just relying on those transom clamps, and you're totally vulnerable. But on the other hand, you add a simple, cheap locking cable that connects the engine right to the boat. It's a backup. It's an insurance policy. Even if those clamps vibrate loose, your engine is staying with the boat. That right there is the ultimate peace of mind. But look, sometimes, even with your best efforts, the damage is just too much for a DIY fix. If that engine just flat out refuses to start, or if it does run but it's making scary noises, I'm talking knocking, grinding, tapping, you need to stop immediately. Excessive smoke, overheating, a major loss of power, these are all huge red flags. It's time to call in a pro who has the right tools to find that hidden damage. And really, that's the main takeaway from all of this. A submerged outboard is a serious, serious emergency, but it's a survivable one. With fast, correct action, you have an excellent chance of saving your motor and, just as importantly, saving your boating season. So now you've got the knowledge. The real question is, what are you going to do with it? What's the one piece of emergency gear you'll add to your boat after hearing all this? Is it going to be a can of fogging oil, a spare set of fresh spark plugs, maybe that secondary locking cable we talked about? Think about that one thing that could make all the difference, because when you're out on the water, preparation is everything.